At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought.
Welcome to the Author Brand Show. I'm your host, Doug Crow, and we have a very special guest on today. Paulette Ensign is going to show us and break some myths about what it means to be an author. Most authors are told, rightfully so, in the business, nonfiction, even fiction space, there's no money in books. It's really hard to make money from your books, and we're going to find out how you can actually buck the trend and make money from your book. So without further ado, let's welcome the show, Miss Paulette Ensign. How are you, Paulette?
I am terrific. If I was any better, I'd be twins.
Ah, there we go. I love that one. We're going to get to the money part in a minute because all of our clients who are writing books or publishing books are always curious about how do you monetize this thing. And you've got some amazing things that you've done that I want the listeners to hear about. But before we do that, I want to get to your background. I think pretty much you're over 20 years old, so you've been around a little while. So tell us your background in publishing and writing and stuff. I want to know all about it.
Yeah, thanks a lot. And I celebrated my 20th birthday multiple times already, so we're good.
There you go.
I'm in my third career, and I only have paper for the first one and realized I am not an employee. So at one point, I think many of us have experienced bottoming out financially or coming close to it. Yeah. I raised my hand. I've done it, been there, not going to do it again. Well, in the early 90s, I was a professional organizing consultant early in that industry, helping people with their paper, time, and space. Yeah. And the sales cycle had gotten much longer than my need for cash. Yeah. I had really made these habits of eating and paying the rent. Wasn't too keen on breaking either of them. So the universe always provides. It always does, even if it's the 11th and a half hour. Somebody walked past me with a little tips booklet on how to improve your business communication skills. And I looked at that, and as a former East Coaster, I very glibly said, I could do one of those on organizing tips. I had never done anything like that before. However, I'm a firstborn, so, great. That's an opportunity to do something different. So nice. I threw it in a drawer, forgot about it for 6 months. Things had not improved. I said, now where is that little booklet? And I pulled it out, and I started to research on the hard drive between my ears of all of what the memory has been from being a professional organizer. And I didn't have to research anything beyond that because it was tried and tested tips that had worked with clients of all flavors. Yeah. And I wrote 110 ideas for organizing your business life. Tips booklet, not a book. And why 110, you might ask? Well, as I mentioned, I'm a firstborn. I'm not going to write 101. And truth be told, I ran out of ideas at 110. So I didn't have two nickels to rub together. Absolutely. So what I figured out doing was going to the local library, sitting down, taking one of those big fat directories off the reference shelf, and started to write down information to reach editors of magazines. Now, because my topic is so generic, I could do almost any kind of magazine. And I sent them the editors, a copy of the booklet and a letter to invite them to excerpt from my booklet without limitation and put it into an article they would write for their magazine as long as they agreed to put the contact information and the $5 cost. Well, that started a wonderful avalanche of big white tubs full of envelopes 6 days a week.
Wait. Hold on a second. So let's break this down because a lot of people our age understand what life was like before the internet.
Oh, yeah.
So I think some people on this show might have missed what you did. The library part, folks, was research. There's a lot of directories. And one of my clients just went there because the internet was messing up, but she went to the library and still get information, really good data about companies. But then you offered them did you mail them your actual tip book?
Booklet.
You mailed the booklet to them with a letter.
I did.
So this is a physical mail with a free gift saying, here's the thing. If you use it, go ahead and reuse it. Make sure you give me attribution. And the $5 is for what?
more than just attribution.
Yeah.
It was that they had my contact information that they had to include.
Right.
This was not a domain name issue. This
It's right.
was
Right. Yeah. It was
26
before
lines
there
of
were
length,
domains. Yeah.
Yeah, $5 was for anybody reading the article to get their own full copy of the booklet.
So
Oh,
it was like a sales letter, but here's something you read in the magazine. If you want your own version,
this was
they
a
send you.
copy of somebody else's booklet, a client's booklet.
Got it. Yeah.
And if it's in a number 10 envelope, has 16 pages in it.
Yeah.
Um, that was the only thing I could think to do
Like,
at
okay.
that point.
We
Okay.
set the stage. And how many of these did you send out? How many magazine editors did you contact initially?
Oh, probably. Well, I was doing very short runs because that was all I could do.
Yeah.
So I probably sent out maybe 25 in a month, each month for a
Okay.
few months.
Yeah. One a day or
And
so. All right.
then manna started falling from heaven.
Ah, I love it.
And I'll tell you something. We talk about how books are primarily, or not primarily, but in large measure, are a door opener for other
Yeah.
opportunities.
Hmm.
I got to tell you, things happened in a good way, in a great way, that I never ever, on my best day of cold calling, could have ever reached, couldn't have opened those doors.
Yeah.
I got an invitation to come to one of the public seminar companies to record my booklet on their nickel, their
Hmm.
distribution. I got royalties. But one of the most important things that happened was I was hiring a high school kid to go through the envelopes after I took the money out because I
Yeah.
didn't want to tempt them. But I also knew it was not the best use of my brain to do the lick and stick and stuffing and data entry. So I'm
Yeah.
going through these envelopes one day, $5, $5, $5, $1,000, $5. Wait a minute. This has more numbers before the decimal point. What is this and why?
1,000?
Yeah, it was $1,000.
Okay,
So
because you wanted more than one, obviously. That's right.
at the time, I was very involved in the National Association of Professional Organizers,
Hmm.
and I had access to all of the manufacturers having anything to do with office supplies or containers or any of that. What I
Got it.
didn't have, Doug, was knowledge. I
Mhm.
came out of academia. I never worked in a corporation, nor will I likely ever. So I didn't know the language. I
Mhm.
didn't know the architecture. I didn't know such thing as promotional campaigns. And why that's important to mention right this minute is when I called the guy to find out what he thought he was buying, he said to me, I saw, 9 lines of copy. It wasn't even an excerpt in Boardroom Press magazine. And he said, I love the booklet so much that I said, I decided it would be great to use as this year's holiday greeting to all of my personal and professional contacts.
Wow.
Well, I said, I couldn't agree more.
Mhm.
And he ended up ordering ultimately 2,500 copies. And to the point that you made when we first started talking, that the library, well, he asked me a couple of questions, he asked me a couple of questions that reinforced the era this was in even more. This was 1992 that happened. He said to me, can we have our name and our phone number on the cover? I said, sure. I had no idea how it was going to happen, but it couldn't be rocket science.
Yeah.
Then he said, I have a really big favor to ask. And I'm, bracing myself. I'm going, what is he going to say? He said, would it be okay with you if we leave your name and contact information in the booklet? Oh, twist my arm. I said, yeah, that would be fine. Um, Now, a couple of things that are really important to point out about what I just shared with you. One is that from that day on forward, I changed my entire business model. You could no longer get only a single copy of that booklet from me because he opened a door for me
Yeah.
immeasurably so that my business model is only that I teach my subject matter experts about bulk sales and content licensing.
Yeah.
And those two topics are not discussed all that much
No.
among book authors.
Mhm.
So it's a different model. It's
Yep.
helping many more people at a time,
Mhm.
and it is making a ton more money.
Right.
Both of those things are crucial. I
Yeah.
mean, when people write books,
Yeah.
they really, the undertone is typically they want to help people in
Sure.
some way.
Right. Yeah.
And yeah, a lot of us are capitalists.
What
Um,
what a concept.
and kidding aside, I
Yeah.
can't be helpful if I'm not abundant in my own
Oh my gosh. Yeah. One of my
resources.
favorite lines is the best way to help the poor is not to be one.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it's the best way to be
Yeah,
abundant and create
exactly.
more value. I have a bunch of
So
questions for you on this. Go ahead.
yeah, so in that 2,500 piece order,
Yeah.
I then started to get orders from people who received the booklet.
Yeah.
And they said, "Oh, this is terrific. How do I get some?" And I'm telling you, from Friday when I had the conversation with him, oh, and
Mhm.
by the way, this guy had nothing to do with organizing. He was an electrical manufacturer's rep firm in San Juan, Puerto Rico. As creative as I like to pride myself in being, I assure you, he never ever would have reached my target market list.
Right?
But his money went right through my checking account beautifully.
Awesome. When the big bulk order came in, either 1,000, the next one, did he ask for a discount on volume or anything? Or he just said, just do it. Just,
No, I didn't leave that for him to ask me anything in that
yeah.
regard because I was alert enough to think about how I could immediately present benefits to him
Right.
beyond even what he had thought.
Hmm.
So I'm grateful that my intuition popped up and took over at that moment.
Sure. Sure. Okay.
Yeah, and
So
by the
let.
way,
Mhm.
you didn't ask me, but I'll tell you anyway,
Yeah.
just for
Please.
the sake of clarity here. I define bulk sales not at 100 copies. It starts at the bare minimum at 500 copies.
Okay.
And to date, in this 3+ decades that I've been in this business and shaping it and responding and all of that good stuff, I've sold personally well over 2 million copies of that content in several languages and formats. And
My God.
here's the big one, without spending a penny on advertising. So
Dramatic pause. Dramatic pause right
that's
there. Don't
right,
have to say it. We're just several
2
million,
million copies.
several million copies of this booklet
Yeah,
with zero advertising.
yeah,
Now, I read an article by Tucker Max, who owned I think Scribe for a while. Um, he did the math on this. Check this out. He said the number of authors and books versus the number of people who sell 1 million copies. Right? He said, do you realize the odds are better of a person winning the lottery than selling 1 million copies of their book?
right.
So, my dear, you've won the lottery a couple times already.
I have. And for anybody who just thought that reality was based in $5 times 2 million, no.
No, no, it's very
Yes, I'm
costs.
abundant, but not yet that abundant.
Yeah, there's business
Yes.
people understand that's cost of goods and living. There's a lot of expenditures here. It's not like you're getting
Yeah,
all
and the question
margin.
that you asked me, did I give him a quantity break, quantity pricing?
Yeah,
Sure we do.
of course.
Absolutely. My
Yeah,
mother bore a fool, but it wasn't me. Um,
love it.
so the fact is, and by the way, anyone that I have the privilege and honor of traveling alongside of in this business,
Yeah.
I don't charge extra for the humor. It's just part of the deal. It's there, and I have to amuse myself too. So
Yes. Oh, I laugh at myself every day. It's the only way I can get an
yeah,
audience. Uh, okay, this is a great story. I love it so much. Please, folks, take note of what she is doing here by leveraging other people's lists and energy, but serving them first. Otherwise, they're not gonna want to
right.
help you out. I want to hear about content licensing as this business has grown and evolved. Tell me more about what you're doing with content licensing.
Yeah, first of all, the definition of content licensing I want to clarify right off
Hmm.
the bat because some people conflate and think in terms of synonyms. Bulk sales is different in my
Yes.
definition than content licensing.
Right.
Content licensing is renting the use of your content to some other entity in exchange for payment.
Hmm.
And that payment can be money, or it can be a booth at a trade show, or it can be all kinds of
Hmm.
payment, which is why I use that word. It depends on what's more valuable to you in negotiating. you still own that intellectual property.
That's right.
Bulk sales is when big delivery gets delivered to the loading dock of a company.
Yeah.
That it's fully produced, that it might be customized, very likely is, and that the typical buyers in a corporation are going to be the departments that are responsible for generating money for the company, like the
Right.
marketing department or the sales department. And every so often, some other department pops up. And, if they want to play, we're ready to play in the sandbox together.
Yep. So give us some ideas or maybe even a story about an interesting way you got a content licensing deal with a company.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. There
Yeah.
was a company in its day was the premier consumer mail order catalog company, and the name of the company was Lillian Vernon.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so because among their vast uh, things that they sold, they had a representative that was a corporate member of the National Association of Professional Organizers. And just as I had finished my booklet, was our annual conference, and I couldn't wait to get to their rep because I knew him, and we were kibitzing around, and it was home. So I went to him with the booklet in hand, and as I said, this is a typical size booklet. This one is about knee pain management.
Right.
This one was about leadership. Mine, again, was about organizing your business life.
Yeah.
And he's absolutely dyed-in-the-wool New Yorker. And I'm formerly from the East Coast, from the Northeast, so I'm tuned in to the pace and how stuff's coming out. And I'm
Yep.
standing there, and he's going, "Yeah, this is great. This is fantastic. You ought to, I don't know, charge us between a nickel and a dime a unit for about 250,000 copies." And I said to him, "David, I was just thinking about that." While I was listening to him,
Yeah.
he was giving me all the information I needed. Now, some folks who have not been schooled in the whole concept of licensing at all, or they just don't have a broad sense of marketing, have immediately said to me, "Oh, to sell that booklet in the catalog?" I said, "No, not even close." I said, "It is offered as a gift with purchase in one issue of their catalog." I said, "It is going to be in the context of a gift that is going to be earned by some criteria."
Yeah.
Now, they were so generous. And by the way, I don't get orders every day of the week to license 250,000 copies of anything.
Right.
So
Right.
keep in mind, I was very humbled by his suggestion. And many of our colleagues, that's not a number that a lot of us deal with. Now, what's important is context, because that year, Lillian Vernon Corporation was dropping 17 million catalogs. So this was a test.
Yeah. As a test.
And this was a test. And I realized that they were very generous in sharing with me that
Yeah.
they had a 13% sales increase as a result that they tracked directly back to that offer.
Oh my
Now, you want
gosh.
quantification. They made out real well. Just a quick aside, in the negotiation that happened very instantaneously, he said between a nickel and a dime. I went back to him and I said 7.5 cents. That's between a nickel and a
Yeah.
dime.
Yeah.
He countered and said a nickel or no sale. Now,
A nickel and what?
a nickel or no sale.
How about a nickel and 5% of your incremental increase of your revenue?
So, at any rate, um, Lillian Vernon Corporation was incredible bragging rights, first and
Yeah.
foremost.
Mm-hmm.
And to be quite honest, I hadn't seen one transaction that was $12,500. I said, that'll be fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that I've got this story to share that is meaningful in a lot of ways, not the least of which is single copy sales, bulk sales,
Mm-hmm.
that
Yeah.
you help more people and you make more money so that you can keep helping more
Right.
people.
Absolutely.
And that our context, when we look at something as an opportunity, and it's easy for a lot of folks because they just don't know any differently. that let's get on Amazon and get a bestseller campaign.
Yeah.
Yeah, I roll my eyes with that one too because it's very
Yeah.
contrived.
Yeah.
And it's going to, ultimately at some point, probably in the near future, lose its power.
Oh, it already has. We used to promote it all the time years ago, and a couple years ago, my wife was saying, "You know that's fake, don't you?" I'm like, "Yeah, but people want it." I go, "Well, stop charging for it. Just do it for fun. Don't charge them for it." It's
Yeah,
just,
right.
you know,
And
we do a small fee for our labor,
yeah,
but people
yeah,
charge 5, 10 grand for them. Like, come on,
right.
it costs that much to
And
do
the
it.
fact is that when somebody's got a book, they're in a situation of it's a yes or no purchase,
Yeah,
and it's one at a time,
yeah,
and you have no
tedious.
idea who bought your books through Amazon.
Yeah, right. No data exchange there, and that's so good. So
I
let me
have
wrap.
come up with ways to do that so that
Yeah.
you can. Yeah.
Yeah, they could do a paywall or, opt-in, things like that. I want to hear about how you're doing your content licensing and bulk stuff in the digital age, Paulette. Give us a more recent, now that we got the foundation laid. We're going to go over our time here, but I'm so curious about what you're doing
It's even
recently.
easier now in the digital age because less, it just depends on the vision and the decision maker's willingness to
Sure.
think beyond what they already know.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's not right or wrong. And what I bring to the table is an and, not an or. So if somebody is on a very traditional path for marketing,
Uh-huh.
I tell them keep going with it.
Yeah,
What I'm bringing to you is not going to interfere, it's going to embellish it.
that's right. Yeah.
So, yeah, when we're talking about licensing, all that digital stuff, this falls right in line with it. We
Yeah.
will rent you the use of this content under these conditions, which is a legal document, a
Mm-hmm.
contract,
Yeah.
that an intellectual property attorney is knowledgeable about guiding
Mm-hmm.
us on.
Yeah.
And that's crucial.
Yeah. Have you experienced or heard any stories of people who were like nervous about that because there was no tracking? In terms of tracking, Lillian Vern's big company, of course, there's data provided on how many things, but
I'm going to
some of
give
these
you my
medium-sized,
philosophy about this.
yeah, okay, yeah, you know
Okay?
where I'm going.
Because, yeah, I've heard things like that, and more people than not are writing things that are not proprietary. It's a collection of
So right.
various experiences that the
Yep,
person had.
yep.
And I don't say that in any demeaning way, I say that in a very factual way.
Mm-hmm.
So, taking a step back, thinking in terms of given the quasi intelligent people there are in the English speaking world, the billions of quasi intelligent English speaking people in the world, there's no way any of us could ever reach everyone who would be our
Yeah.
client. So get over yourself and serve those that you can reach. And believe me, I am not a Pollyanna, and I am far from naive about things like this.
Yep.
You know,
Yeah. I get it. It's I'm from the Midwest, and so I've had a lot of clients from all over the country and world, in fact. But whenever I told my Midwest people, most of the time it's like, hey, you know what? That paper we sign is about as good as the person behind it. You can sign, write whatever you want, but the person can still mess around if they're going to mess around. So, relationship handshake is a lot more valuable in my world. So I,
yeah,
I
and I
get that.
think too that you have to decide what battles you want to fight.
Yeah, right. Yep. I love it. So good. So go ahead. This is your time for your shameless promotion. How do we get a hold of you? How can people hire you? What can you offer them? Give me everything you got.
Thank you. I thought you'd
You
never
bet.
ask. Uh, I say that lovingly. Um, I, 28 years ago, surprisingly enough, moved from the East Coast to sunny San Diego,
Nice.
where snow is a choice and one that I don't make.
Yeah.
So I live about 10 minutes from the beach, and
Wonderful.
yeah, it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
So you can reach me online at tipsproducts.com.
Mm-hmm.
Tipsproducts.com. Don't lose your S along the way. And we really have a very wide gamut of offers to really
Mm-hmm.
satisfy any budget and any level of patience and whatever it is that you are ready to invest in time and
Mm-hmm.
dollars. And we
Nice.
recently launched a brand new thing that I've been thinking about for years and couldn't quite massage it for
Yep.
it to really fly. And it's called Drip a Tip. The model that we use these days for a while now has been 52 tip manuscripts, 52 tips
Mm-hmm.
reflecting the
Yeah,
subject
1 a
matter
week. Yeah.
expert's knowledge. And I've been saying you can drip a tip every week.
Yeah.
Well, I finally figured out what the program could be, and we've just launched it. So there is a page that tells you all that you need to know, and it's a whopping $53 investment for each tip that you want to include,
Wow.
and we rock and roll. On the other end is done for you services one-on-one.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a great time doing that because something always shows up that I never could have predicted in a good way,
Yeah.
in a good way.
Okay.
And I can't predict it, but I know something's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Even
Wonderful.
right through COVID, we figured out some very different things that were able to serve people. Now, Doug, I know that you deal mostly with nonfiction authors. Is that
Yes.
correct?
Yes. 99% of nonfiction. Yeah.
Yeah. I had for many years too, and what popped up out of the blue were some children's book authors, and I questioned whether we could serve them with the similar concepts, and it turns out we can.
Yeah, I've consulted with about a handful of fiction authors, but I'm bringing business stuff to the table. I'm like, you know what? You need an audience that is hungry for this story, and the best way to do that is to build your audience as you build your book. So you can sell sponsorship, you can have the character naming contests. There's so many little things you can do, and it's sometimes slow, but it can take off where you use your audience for crowdsourcing some of the content, some of the marketing, and it can work for fiction authors. They just
I
have to be a
want,
little. I love your stories, and it comes from the heart, and I love your humor equally. So that's really appreciate it. Paulette, her contact information is below, folks. If you're looking to connect with her, go to her website, contact her. She's got a wealth of information and success in making money from your ideas, your content, and your book, of course. So thank you so much for being on the show today. Appreciate it.